Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about 10 times that flankers were completely different from the original. And as we go through the list, I'm also going to be letting you know if I think the original or the flanker is superior. So make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin this video and I tell you about these 10 times that flankers were completely different from the original, and I also let you know if I think the flanker or the original is superior, I do want to mention that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to enable all notifications by clicking on the bell icon, and of course, give this video a thumbs up if you like this type of content. So here we have a bunch of flankers to the original counterpart, and the original sets a reputation, it sets the ball in motion, and it gives people an idea of what to expect when it comes to a certain flanker, right? So sometimes they might release a flanker that's a little darker or a little fresher. We saw this back in the day with sports flankers, and that's typically what they did. They released a fresher counterpart or a darker counterpart, but sometimes a flanker will come out, smells nothing like the original, and sometimes it leaves consumers scratching their heads. Now, the good news is that sometimes these flankers can end up being better than the original. So people often say, oh man, I'm glad they released this because it fixed XYZ problem, whether that was a problem with the smell or their performance or what have you. So let's just go ahead and dive into the list. And this first one is kind of a no-brainer because it comes from the brand Thierry Mugler. Now, the original Amen, which came out in the mid-90s, composed by Jacques Huclier, is this caramel, ethyl maltol, cotton candy, patchouli type of a fragrance. Now, with every single flanker, with the exception of the one that is informally known as pure leather, otherwise known as Le Parfum de Cuir, that one actually smells very similar to the original with an added leathery backbone. Here we have pure malt, but in this list I could have very easily put pure Havane, pure coffee, pure energy, pure wood. All of these fragrances smell very, very different from the original Amen. And I think that's one of the reasons why people loved these fragrances so much, because it wasn't just a slightly rehashed version of the original, which came across smelling unoriginal and almost a little repetitive and boring. Now, with these fragrances, they were all quite different. Even Cryptomint and Ultra Zest, they just did things so differently, and people appreciated having that novel olfactive experience. Well, the next fragrance I think is discontinued, so I do apologize for including it in this list, but it's 1 Million Privé. This is a really dark incense fragrance, specifically using the note of myrrh. Now, the original 1 Million, well, we all know what it smells like, right? Very bright, airy, bubblegum-like. So it has that sweetness that a lot of people say smells kind of juvenile and maybe also a little childish and quite youthful. This darkened things up in such a beautiful way. And I'm really surprised that this flanker, which, by the way, I think, and I forgot to mention if I think this is better than the original or not, I like them both equally. I personally love the original. I think the original deserves some amazing credit, especially because it pioneered the gourmand genre, just like the women's counterpart, Angel for Women. But I really love pure malt and pure Havane. But I personally think that this is better than the original 1 Million. I think 1 Million Privé was such an improvement over the original. Darker, richer, more mysterious. It just has a special personality that the original didn't have. Now, the original was also unique for its time, believe it or not. There have always been sweet bubblegum type fragrances, but for a men's scent, the original 1 Million is certainly unique. I just personally feel that 1 Million Privé really sort of outdid itself, and I prefer it over the original. Now, for the next fragrance, it's by Montblanc, and this one is called Explorer Ultra Blue. Now, of course, the original is Explorer, and the original Explorer smells like Creed Aventus. Now this fragrance, a lot of people were speculating, is probably going to smell like a Ventus cologne or something like that, because it appears to be a brighter, fresher version of Explorer, even though it had completely different note breakdown. And this one is a little bit more herbal and aromatic, a lot more citrus in here. So this one actually smells more like Azzaro Chrome, which was kind of surprising to me, right? It kind of has this old school, freshy yet classic DNA about it. And in my opinion, I do think that this is a downgrade over the original Explorer. Now, I do like the accessibility of this fragrance. I like how easy it is to wear. It's easy to pull off. It's also easy to recommend to other people, especially if they're a fan of the fresh types of fragrances. However, I do think that in many ways this was a downgrade over the original. I cannot, on a commercial level, I cannot see this doing as well as the original Explorer. The next fragrance I want to mention here is a flanker that did things so differently when other flankers actually stayed true to form. And this fragrance by Viktor and Rolf is Spice Bomb Night Vision Eau de Parfum. Now we have Spice Bomb Night Vision Eau de Toilette, which smells like Invictus Aqua, smells nothing like Spice Bomb. We do have Spice Bomb Extreme, which smells very close to Spice Bomb. And this fragrance, the Eau de Parfum, smells like Azzaro's Wanted by Night. And so this goes in a completely different direction from the original Spice Bomb. And I don't typically like it when companies do this because they're using the visuals and the reputation of the original to sell a flanker. And a lot of unsuspecting consumers will make a connection between the two and they will think that it smells similar, or it has some resemblance, and then they smell it and they realize it smells nothing like the original. Now in this case, I actually like the smell of Wanted by Night by Azzaro. So when I smelled this fragrance and I realized how similar it was to it, I was like, you know what, I can live with this. It's the type of DNA that I enjoy. I see myself wearing it a lot. But yes, this does smell quite different from the original Spice Bomb. And with that, we have Gucci Guilty Oud. Now Gucci Guilty was bright, fresh, citrus. And then they released the Intense version, if I'm remembering correctly. And that one also smelled kind of similar. And then there was also Gucci Guilty Black, which smelled kind of similar to all of those. And then when they started releasing Gucci Guilty Absolute, Gucci Guilty Oud, for example, Oud and Raspberry. So this is a really unique fragrance, smells nothing like the original, and I think this is an amazing flanker. I personally love Gucci Guilty Absolute. And not Absolute, excuse me, Oud. I'm not a fan of Gucci Guilty Absolute, but I do think that Gucci Guilty Oud is a really special fragrance, especially functioning as an entry-level oud for people who may not necessarily be the biggest fan of the more natural animalic barnyard varieties of the raw material. The next fragrance by Jean Paul Gaultier is Ultra Male. Now, of course, we have Le Male, which is the classic, and I actually have the bottle right here behind me. I'll see if I can get it without breaking anything. And this one, just vanilla, mint, lavender, very classy. Ultra Male is a dark vanilla with pear. So it's sweet. It has this bubblegum vibe about it as well. Perfect for a clubbing environment. Really did things differently. And as you can tell, all of these bottles, in some way, shape, or form, probably with the exception of their color, resemble the original, right? And so that's another thing that kind of confuses the consumer, right? That semblance of similarity when in reality the smell is quite different. The next fragrance by Versace is Versace Pour Homme Dylan Blue. Now, I don't think this one is totally different from the original Versace Pour Homme, although if I smell it side by side, 10 times out of 10 times, I'll be able to tell you which one is which. But this one was clearly a response to the success of Christian Dior Sauvage. So with this fragrance, they said, you know what can we put out that has the ambroxan, that has the pepper, that has the bergamot, and this is what they came up with. I think they did a great job. It's not as fresh and aquatic as the original, but this one definitely has some darker elements to it that make it a little bit more refined, a little bit more serious, and give it more of that mature personality. And of course, getting into the number 3 spot, we have Armaf's Club de Nuit Sillage. Again, the original Club de Nuit for men smells like Creed Aventus or Creed Aventus, and that's Club de Nuit Intense for men. The women's version smells like Noir de Noir by Tom Ford, but this fragrance, despite it being in a very similar bottle, although different color scheme and stuff, this one actually smells like Silver Mountain Water by Creed. And so, not very original. The original wasn't very original either, but it seems like with every fragrance they're putting out, they target a different fragrance, usually a popular niche fragrance, and they kind of put their own inexpensive version of it out on the market. And so, in the case of, because I have forgotten a bit, I don't think that this was better than the original. I love the original Spice Bomb. I do think that Gucci Guilty Oud is better than the original because this is far more unique than the original. And I'm a little torn. I think this is a lot more modern than the original Le Male. And so I do like the sweetness of it, but a part of me also really likes the original as well. It's very classy. You got to give it its due credit. And in the case of this fragrance, I think, and I will only say this is an improvement over the original because it's very accessible and it gives a formal vibe to it as well, whereas the original gives only a casual vibe. In the case of Sillage, I do think that this fragrance is both an improvement and not really, just because it's a completely different fragrance. And I actually do appreciate it because I'm smelling way too many Creed Aventus clones and inspirations out there. So I'm glad that they went with something a little different versus manipulating the Creed Aventus DNA again. Now, getting into the number 2 spot, we have Acqua di Gio Profumo. Now, this fragrance, in my opinion, is quite different from the original. I think INCENSE smells similar to the original. I think Profondo smells similar to the original. I think Profondo Light takes it in a different direction with that green addition, but I do think that this fragrance with that dark patchouli kind of has the same effect as Versace Dylan Blue. Takes the DNA of the original, kind of eliminates the freshness a little bit, makes it a little bit more dressed up, a little bit more mature, and in many ways, while the original Acqua di Gio is a classic, nothing can compare to it. For my own personal sentiments, if you will, I actually do prefer Profumo. I think Profumo, there are a lot more opportunities for me to wear it, especially given the fact that so many people I know wear and used to wear Acqua di Gio. It's refreshing to have something slightly different that I can still wear when I want to have a similar complement factor and I want to smell as appealing as I would smell with the original. And the fragrance in the number 1 spot totally caught me off guard. And this is one of the most unique fragrances that I've smelled for its time. And it is a modern release. And it's one that takes an unconventional note, but utilizes it in such an exceptional way, especially for a men's fragrance. And this one by Moschino is Toy Boy. Now, the original Toy is also shaped like a teddy bear. However, it has like a plush head and you can decapitate it very much like this one. But that one just smelled kind of bland and uninspiring. And it was supposed to be a freshie, I think, but it didn't really have anything special going on about it. But here we have a rose-based fragrance, which is so unique. And I've smelled rose fragrances on the market before, but this one, it's so bold and it's so charismatic. And it's also very sensual and romantic at the same time. Like I can see this is how a real playboy, if you will, would smell with a rose-based fragrance, something that's just really captivating, sensual, alluring. I think they did an amazing job with Toy Boy by Moschino. So there you have it, ladies and gents. And by the way, this is 100% an improvement over the original. So there you have it, ladies and gents. These are 10 times when flankers smelled completely different from the original. And I also let you know what my thoughts are on each one. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also, let me know what are some times when a flanker really impressed you, right? What is the time when you smelled the flanker and it really impressed you? You completely didn't expect it to smell the way that it smells. Leave a comment down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to support this channel by subscribing to it. Make sure to enable all notifications by clicking on the bell icon, and give this video a thumbs up if you took something of value from today's episode. Thanks again for watching. Love you all. We'll see you soon. Bye.